Whether you use them or not, you can't deny the increased usage of emoji. It's not just a part of social media and everyday life. It shows up quite a bit in business and enterprise scales too. For a data scientist, that's an opportunity to do some feature engineering. What can we learn from analyzing emojis specifically? Can it help predict whether remote workers will be successful working on online platforms? That's the question we explore today with Xuan Lu.
Hi, my name is Xuan Lu, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the School of Information at the University of Michigan.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you're studying?
Generally, I'm very interested in understanding people using data science techniques. And in particular, I study if the emojis used in online communications can help understand different aspects of people, as they are popularly used worldwide across languages and can provide rich information such as nonverbal cues. And my recent work looks at the applications of this in remote work. We know that more and more employees are working remotely, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, there can be many challenges compared with working in traditional workplaces. For example, there can be a lack of face-to-face communication, which makes it hard to express your emotions to your coworkers, as well as to observe the emotional status of your coworkers. So it is challenging for both the workers and the team managers or the organizations because it is important to maintain good mental health at work by expressing emotions appropriately, and emotions can serve as critical signals of work motivations and status. So it is a fundamental question of how to track people's emotions and how to facilitate the emotional intelligence at work when we move to remote work. And considering that workers rely heavily on online platforms such as emails, instant messages, and forums to communicate and collaborate, such platforms can provide an alternative channel to monitor workers' emotions. So in this work we are going to talk about today, we use data from GitHub to study how emojis can be used for such purposes and how the emotional signals in emoji usage can be used to predict the future behaviors of workers.
Could you speak a little bit to the technical side of what constitutes an emoji? I mean, I have a sense the first one I learned was :parenthesis for the smiley face, but I know there are formal standards for Unicode and different ways to look at emojis. What's the sort of like character level way you perceive what an emoji is?
In our work, when we understand the meanings of the emojis, we use a quite collective way, and we use the definitions of the emojis from the Unicode. So we just use the textual descriptions of the emojis to understand the meanings and the sentiments conveyed by them.
And is there any consensus, I don't know if there's form or scholarship on this, but do the emojis map well to actual emotions? Can I express myself with emoji effectively?
Yeah, that is an interesting point. So when we try to understand the emotions conveyed by the emojis, we just leverage the descriptions from their official descriptions and feed them into a program. And this program will tell us the different dimensions of the emotions that are embedded in this emoji. So we are able to know that if an emoji is used to express a positive emotion or negative emotion or something like angry or anxiety.
And do you find that those are good sensors? For example, like I can use an angry face, it probably means I'm upset, but maybe I used it sarcastically or, something along those lines. Is there room for confusion when dealing with emojis?
This is a really interesting question. So there are some research studying the ambiguity of emojis, and it is really a challenging question because the emojis, they can have different meanings in different contexts. So in our work, we just use a collective way, and we should admit that this is a limitation of our work.
Well, I'd love to expand on the data set. So you'd mentioned that your data comes from GitHub. I'm a pretty active GitHub user, so every day I'm leaving comments and sometimes leaving reactions or making pull requests. There's lots of places I can put an emoji. I guess my question is, what constitutes your data set? What do you pull from GitHub?
So the emoji usage behaviors are extracted from almost all kinds of the communicational posts, like the issues, the pull requests, and the different kind of comments.
And can you give any high-level statistics or observations on the use of emoji? Is it, very frequent, like every post, or perhaps it's rare? What are some of the general observations you had when exploring the data set?
In general, in all the posts we collected from the GitHub in 1 year, we see that more than 5% of posts contain at least one emoji. And the proportion can be different in different kinds of posts. And we observed that in the comments to pull requests and the comments to commit, there are more emojis used, while in other kinds of posts, there are less emojis used.
That makes sense. I guess it's consistent with my usage. Well, what sort of predictions might you want to make from this data? What can we learn by looking at just emojis?
So in this work, we wanted to predict the future dropout of active developers based on their emoji usage in 1 year.
And what constitutes an active developer?
Any developer that was active in the first year are regarded as the active developers. And from the perspective of data, if we can observe any kind of activities, like if they made a comment, or they made a push, or they posted some issues or pull requests, and we regard them as active users. And if they are not active in the second year, and they are regarded as dropped out from the platform in the second year.
Gotcha. Well, I think the idea of a healthy open source project would be longer term contributors, and many of them. So if I could detect dropout, maybe there's an intervention that could be taken to improve the community or contributions or something like that. Is that ultimately the objective of your work, or is there something else to it that I'm not seeing?
Yes, that's right. And I think our work can also provide implications to any companies or organizations that are aimed to support the remote work in addition to the GitHub. So they can also use emojis in their work-related communications, and our approach can be also applied if they want to monitor the emotional status of their workers.
In terms of emotional status, I feel like a lot of my emojis might reflect my feeling about the project, but not myself, although I haven't done a careful analysis. Do you have a sense of the emotionality that people are responding to? Is it truly something we can say are their feelings, or is it how they feel about a particular thing?
I think there should be further research effort to understand what's the relation between what is expressed through emojis and what is really felt by the user who used the emojis. And in our work, we just interpret what are expressed, and we find that people are using emojis not only to express their emotions, but they can also use emojis for different purposes. And the reason that we focus on the emotions here is that emotion expression is one of the major purposes of using emojis. And in order not to exclude the other purposes of emoji usage, we also include the general usage, like how many kinds of emojis are used by this user, or how many posts are with emojis.
Cloud ushers in great potential. Today's data-driven organizations can innovate and fly higher and faster than before. Astrato is built for modern data teams. It's a cloud-native solution with direct access to all the power, agility, and scalability of the Snowflake data cloud. And with Astrato, there's no data movement, so your business reaps the benefits of enhanced data quality, boosting your competitive advantage, reducing costs, and improving decision-making business-wide. Because your insights are always up to date, Astrato is extremely useful as a rapid prototyping tool, further speeding up the time to value. Data teams can employ this time-saving capability for data prototyping, rapid dashboards, and building business application prototypes so you can test things in a rich no-code environment. This means the time to value is reduced from hours or days to mere minutes. As a progressive data leader, you need the right resources to help your team and help performance levels soar. Find out more at astrato.io/dataskeptic. ASTRATO, astrato.io/dataskeptic. On Data Skeptic, we talk to researchers, scientists, and entrepreneurs working to drive real innovation in using data-driven intelligence. From forecasting weather patterns to anticipating stock market movement, we've heard a lot about the many exciting and ingenious methods used to pave the way towards insight. But to unlock the promise of advanced analytics and machine learning, you're going to need a data warehouse. That's where our latest sponsor, Astera, enters the picture. Their no-code platform gives users all the tools they need to bring together data from disparate applications and systems, cleanse and enrich it, then consolidate it on the cloud or on-premises. Astera is focused on user experience, automation, and being a comprehensive ETL pipelining solution that fully empowers domain and data experts to take charge of their journey to insights and craft a solution that meets their needs. The resulting process is fast, agile, intuitive, and most importantly, future-proof, so your data warehouse is always ready to deliver cutting-edge reporting and analytics. To find out more about the Astera platform, get in touch with the team at astera.com/contact-us. Astera is A-S-T-E-R-A, astera.com/contact-us. That's very interesting. Could you expand? I know you've done a lot of other feature engineering steps as well in the project. Could you expand on what some of the novel ways you can slice and dice the data are that help prepare it for machine learning to take a look at it?
In the prediction task, we use only the emoji-related features because we aim to understand the predictive powers of the emojis, but not the other work-related features. So the features included in the prediction are from several dimensions. First, we extract features from the emoji usage in the first year, such as the intensity of emoji usage in posts, like how many posts are with emojis and the proportion of the posts that contain emojis, and also the diversity of the used emojis, like how many unique kinds of emojis are used and the distribution of usage across different kinds of emojis. And also, we include the emotions conveyed by the emojis. As we mentioned before, the different dimensions of the emotions, including the positive emotion, the negative emotion, and the anger, anxiety, and something like that. And we also consider the usage of some individual emojis, which are believed to be related to the personality of a person or the depression level of someone. And I should emphasize here that only the emoji-related features are used in this prediction. And before the prediction task, actually, we measured the different aspects of the working status of the developers to show that the emoji usage of the developers are really related to their working status.
Gotcha. So we've got this data set that I guess we could call it limited in the sense that there's more data and metadata you could have looked at, but you're going to purely focus on the emojis alone to see what their predictive power is. And if I understand correctly, it's looking at who will continue on and be active in year 2. Can we now zoom in? I think you touched on this earlier, but I'd love to hear about the results. How accurate can you make this prediction using emojis alone?
So this work is related to churn predictions, such as whether a customer will leave a service or whether a student will drop out from school or if an employee will quit a job. And such work can usually achieve very high accuracy with massive features and advanced machine learning models. But in our setting, as we just said, we use only the emoji-related features because we wanted to verify the predictive power of emojis, and we use only the standard machine learning models. So it is hard to achieve a very high accuracy like 99%, but the prediction performance is still decent, and the classification accuracy is up to 75%.
Yeah, that's surprisingly high for what is really a limited thing. You can't know the disposition of the person or if they retired that year or something like that. Do you have any interpretation of it? What can we take away from the result?
This accuracy, at least it means that there are early interventions that you can do. You can actually track the emotions of your coworkers. And we believe this is useful for all the organizations that are going to support the remote work. And if you can track the emotions of your workers through their emoji usage, then you can identify the early signals like the mental problems like burnout or to apply early interventions. And by interpreting the predicting results, we can also have some insights regarding what kind of emoji features are more predictive and the direction of the predictive power. For example, we found that people who use more emoji posts, that means people who write posts with more emojis, are less likely to drop out from the platform in the next year. And that means using emojis is a good signal that one will not drop out. And also from the emotional dimensions, we can find that people who use emojis to express more emotions are less likely to drop out. And it tells us that it is good to express emotions with emojis, even the emotion is negative, and it is better than not expressing emotions.
I don't know that it would be possible to compare your results to ground truth, because how could we ever know what's in a person's heart? Even if we survey them, it's a complicated issue. But is there anything you can benchmark against to get a sense of how well these signals capture the real emotion of the committers?
Actually, it is hard for us to obtain the ground truth, like what is the real feeling of the emoji user. And although we cannot do this, we still wonder why the emojis work in such prediction. So consider that we are not able to know the ground truth. We conducted some additional analysis to see if there are explainable paths of this effect of the emojis in this prediction. So we proposed two possible paths of this effect. And the first is that the emojis could possibly reflect some inherent characteristics of the user of the emojis. For example, maybe people who use emojis have a higher willingness to express and to regulate the emotions. And maybe they have a more positive emotional status. And the second possible path is that the emojis can bring in external effects and they can in turn influence the working status of the developers. And our analysis shows that if an issue is with at least one emoji, this issue can be responded sooner in comparison with those issues that are without emojis. And we also find that emoji in issues can help them to get more emoji comments that can indicate a higher level of emotional support.
Well, I know your work is currently in the research phase, but there could be a product that comes out of this one day, or let's just say a tool. Maybe an HR department, human resources, uses it, or maybe it's the CTO who uses it to monitor something about the engineers that report up to that person. Do you have a vision for, who the ultimate consumer is or the ways in which they might take advantage of insights like these?
Before applying the approach proposed by our work, if you want to generalize our method, the first thing is that you should make sure that emojis are used in your company or in your organization. And there can be different norms of using emojis for different domains or different occupations. So they should be careful if they want to apply our approach first. And if emojis are really used, then the features we proposed in our prediction can be used in their tool. And they can also consider if there are some customized emojis that are not included in the Unicode or that are not supported in the GitHub.
Were you able to observe any other variances across types of projects? Are there any, for example, any covariates like the language that people are programming in that has an impact on the results?
Yes, in our first part of this work, we did a descriptive analysis of the emoji usage and we found that developers with different programming languages are using the emojis quite differently. And the difference can be observed from many aspects like the proportion of emoji usage and the diversity of emoji usage. So in our prediction, when constructed the datasets for the prediction, we controlled the distribution of the programming language. So we can control the possible confounder of the programming language here.
Well, can you talk about where this fits into your ongoing research? Is this kind of a project that's been completed, or are you taking further steps along these lines?
So this work is a correlational analysis work, and all the findings are correlation but not causation. So currently, we are looking at the causal effects of the emojis on the working performance of remote workers.
And where do you see this leading next? I mean, there's a lot more remote work that's going to continue in the future and probably more ways to study it. Are there any aspects that you're excited about on your horizon for what you're working on?
In fact, there are many challenges in this field, especially under the pandemic when many workers transit from the traditional workplaces to remote work. And for example, the COVID-19 pandemic and the quarantines required millions of people to work from home. How did this affect work in aspects of productivity, creativity, or innovation? This is really an interesting question. And also, there can be a diverse range of social, psychological, or health-related issues. And how to track emotions of remote workers is really a fundamental question here. And there are a lot of questions need to be answered. And in this work, we are just trying to provide some empirical evidence with the help of machine learning techniques and see how far we can go.
And do you think there's any reason for concern on the privacy side? Do I, as an employee, have a concern about my employer considering my emotions? It seems beneficial that they'd want me to be healthy, but just thinking broadly, are there privacy concerns to be considered?
I would say we should always consider about the ethical perspectives. And I think because our approach is based solely on the emoji usage, and the emoji usage itself is not that sensitive in comparison with texts. So I think the ethic issue is quite light here.
Definitely, yeah. On a public GitHub page, for sure.
Yeah, especially in the GitHub, it should not be a concern because all the data we collected are public. But when someone wants to apply our work in a specific company or a specific organization, they should consider more about this problem.
Yeah, certainly lots of questions to be asked, but an interesting area and a surprising results that emojis can be so powerful. Xuan, is there anywhere listeners can follow you online?
Yes, I'm on Twitter, and my username is LUXUAN09.
Sounds good. We'll have a link in the show notes. Well, thanks again for coming on Data Skeptic and sharing your work.
Thank you for having me.
That concludes another installment of Data Skeptic Physically Distributed. Thanks to our sponsors today, Estrato and Astera. Myself, Claudia Armbruster, as associate producer, Vanessa Bly, guest coordinator, show notes written by David Abembe, and our host, Kyle Polich.